Welcome to Legal Beagle.
Hey everyone, welcome into an all-new episode of Legal Beagle with Kristina Lyke. I'm your host, Mike Leon. Kristina is a seasoned attorney, constitutional advocate, and the founder of Lyke Law PLLC, and she represents clients all across the state of Michigan in criminal defense, family law, and civil rights matter, fighting to protect their freedoms, families, and their future. In today's episode, we're answering a question that many co-parents face out there. What could you do? What can you do if the other parent is breaking the court order? Kristina's going to answer that and break it all down in just a second. Kristina, it's good to see you. I would love to find out from you, what are some of the common ways that you've seen in your experience parents violate custody or even parenting time orders?
All right, thanks for having us today. First of all, some of the things that we've actually seen in our office is that, first of all, if we have a custody order, one may go and, like, there's joint legal custody and there's joint physical custody, there's full physical custody. One parent may not give another holiday that was ordered. They might go and say, oh, I'll keep this holiday and who cares about the other parent? Another one may go and there's joint legal custody, which is major life decision making, and that's medical decisions. Maybe one parent will try to oust the other parent by not allowing them to have knowledge of when those medical appointments are, where they're located, if they change a doctor or if they change school systems. I've seen a lot of school systems change. A lot of times, though, it's medical appointments. They might go and get braces on the child, and maybe the braces don't need to be had at that time period or completed at that time period. But they always want the bill to be paid, when the bill does come to be paid. So a lot of those are violations, but joint legal custody, we see a lot of those lately. We also see a lot of times that people are trying to maybe alienate some of the parenting time, trying to make sure that the kids are not going to see maybe dad or mom at that time period because kids don't want to go. They say, that's too bad. You have to encourage the kids to go with the other parent. That's what it's all about, co-parenting.
You talked a little bit about the violations there. So I'm assuming you want everyone to save all their documents, but how should people document these violations, especially so they're holed up in court?
Sure, that's a great question. So a lot of times I tell people, first of all, if you have those video cameras, like what are those called? They're video cameras that you stick on the doors.
Ring camera.
Thank you. Ring cameras. Have ring cameras. Some of those actually pick up different conversations. Also, you can see if the person actually shows up for parenting time, because sometimes that can be a problem in of itself. You can also see whether or not I would document by text messages, also by email. But text messages are great if you don't have what is called appclose.com or if you have Talking Parents. But one of those things is that Talking Parents is a very big help. It's like Family Wizard. I tell parents to actually get on that because even if they don't have a court order, that way they can make sure that all the messages from each other are documented between each other. That shows whether or not, and for instance, if somebody doesn't show up for parenting time, like picking up, you can send them a message stating, hey, I just was curious. I believe the court order says 6 o'clock, you're supposed to pick up at Friday night. Did something happen to you? And you want to put that out there kind of vague, maybe overly broad sometimes too, not accusing the person because you don't want to look like you're trying to get that person in trouble with court. So then the other person doesn't know what you're really actually doing because they're not used to you being kind to each other, right? Because that's the reason why they're not together or divorced. So it's always good to have documentation that are text messages, but just ask the person. Don't go and accuse the person because when you accuse the person, you're not going to get the answers that you want so that you have documentation for court. Yeah. Another thing is sometimes I tell people, like if there's a public meeting place, go get the video camera from either the police station or maybe from a restaurant. Sometimes the restaurants don't have them, but get a receipt from the restaurant. So if you're going to McDonald's, that's a public place to meet. Sometimes you have that halfway point. Go to McDonald's, say, I would like to order a Coke. Then you have that receipt showing, hey, I was here. Where was that person? And then I would get a camera out too as well. And also another form is in Michigan, you are able to record another person as long as one person is actually of the knowledge that you're recording. So if you and I, Mike, were on the phone with each other, of course, I want to make sure that you're not outside of the state of Michigan because case law does tell us this. So I want to make sure you're not outside the state of Michigan. But if you're inside the state of Michigan, in the bounds of Michigan, I want to make sure that I record you because I know I have knowledge that I'm recording you. So I can ask, hey, were you there at the such and such place? No, I missed it completely. I was at the Tigers game or I was at the Detroit Lions game. That was more important than parenting time. Usually people don't state that. Usually on phone calls, I'm kind of exaggerating here, but at least you have, some documentation to back your story up for when you go to court.
And Kristina, it funnels into a follow-up perfectly because in those examples, you can clearly see like some willful non-compliance. But what's the difference between, let's say, a technical violation versus the willful non-compliance?
Sure. I kind of like to look at this as when we do contempt hearings. So willful is like you had intent to make sure that the person was not getting their parenting time or making sure that they were not going to be able to attend that doctor's appointment or make sure that they don't have a say into the school. And when you have intent, you're maliciously doing it. You're doing it, it's like a wanton, sometimes it's reckless too, because it's selfish on your part. Now, if you're looking at the other, which we look at, is there a good faith reason why there wasn't non-compliance? So obviously, you failed to abide by the order, but is there a good reason for that? And a good reason would be is, let's say that you are fearful of sending the child over to mom's or dad's house because of the fact that something bad was going to happen. Maybe the child was either going to be molested or the child was going to be, in harm's way of domestic violence that's going on in the home, or that one of the parents is, drinking constantly, maybe having some problems with substance abuse, things of that nature. So that is a good faith reason of not, but you still can hold them in contempt of court in front of the judge. But if you can show that there was that good faith reason of why you did not send the child at that time period, then you're not going to be held in contempt of court.
Are there other ways the court can punish someone for repeated violations?
Yes, there's, we can hold them in contempt of court. There's also, we can go into parenting time orders, parenting time complaints. Now, if you have an order and the front of the court's involved and you didn't opt out, you can always file a parenting time complaint with the front of the court. The front of the court gives them a certain time period to go and send a response back. So the other side will get a time to respond. If they don't respond, then they're automatically cited for that violation, basically. And so they'll have to make up time or do something differently for that time. There's also, we can do a motion to enforce the order too as well, because somebody's not actually going in doing what is actually ordered into the custody order or the parenting time order. There's also what is called a Lombardo motion. And a lot of attorneys forget this motion because this Lombardo motion is for joint legal custody only. A lot of times individuals, that's why I say don't represent yourself in pro per, meaning by yourself, or maybe a bankruptcy attorney will try to do family law, right, on a day that they might want to do some. We saw a lot of that during COVID. But you want to do a Lombardo motion because a Lombardo motion is trying to make sure that this person is following what the court orders, and it's joint legal custody. So we're trying to enforce this individual to make sure that they are following joint legal custody steps, making sure that appointments are told to the other person, making sure that they are on the notice for school, making sure that they are able to pick the child up at school, making sure that they're not being ousted when it comes to decisions of braces, or God forbid something happened to the child by accident or something, and they're not there for the emergency surgery. So those are things that I see a lot of times that parents are doing. And really what you're doing is just hurting the child. You're not hurting the other, you're hurting the other parent, quite frankly, but you're also hurting the child. And that's what people have to realize too. And I try to tell that to many people, that just remember this: whatever your child sees of you doing to the other parent, that's going to be, they're going to do that in the future. And they might do that to you too as well with your grandchildren.
That's right. Parents, the kids emulate their parents. Kristina, then it funnels into a follow-up beautifully, which is, what would you advise another parent if the other parent keeps making, like, let's say, false excuses to keep the child away? What should they do?
First of all, I'd tell them to hire myself as an attorney, right? But the second thing is make sure you have your documentation and make sure you have witnesses. So when we were talking earlier about documenting, one thing I did fail to explain is sometimes you're in a bad circumstance. Like maybe one is always putting the camera up and recording and trying to get you in trouble and trying to make false statements of yourself. So I always say, make sure that you bring not like a girlfriend, and not maybe somebody like a mother, but a person that maybe the other parent does not know, so that they can go with you to pick up the child and they can actually witness and be a witness for you in court. Because we need to have non-biased witnesses. And a lot of times when your girlfriend testifies, that's great, but I'm going to cross-examine. If I'm on the other side, I'm going to cross-examine that person and say, well, you're the girlfriend. You'd say anything, right? Because you love this person. So try to have a non-biased person, and also maybe bring, I hate to say this, but sometimes you have to have videotapes, but make sure that the child does not see it, because I think that looks like that you're discouraging parenting time with the other parent. So, but if it comes to a bad circumstance, try to hide it in your pocket maybe, or, while it's out in public. You never want to put any tracking devices, obviously, on anybody's car. And I want to make sure that's clear, because only investigators can do that in the state of Michigan. If you do that, that's a crime. Because lately I've actually seen this, and I'm going to point this out. In one of my cases, we had somebody put tracking devices, those air tags. Yeah. So that's actually against the law if you don't tell the other parent. So I'm telling parents now, because they put them in backpacks, they put them in stuffed animals. And in one of my cases recently, they put them in stuffed animals, sewed them up, and they didn't realize that was a crime. And they didn't tell my client that it was actually in there. So you're really tracking the other parent. So if you're going to do something like that, you need to contact the other parent and see if that's okay, first of all, because that's their time, because they don't need to be tracked. And so, and there's been some case law on that too as well.
So, Kristina, then when should you ever call the police, or everything should just stay handled through the court?
That's a really good question. Sometimes I tell clients to call the police just for like a safety welfare check to see if the kids are doing okay, see if they're actually sleeping in the same house, because sometimes bad things happen. We don't know what's going on with those kids. So call for a welfare check. The police can do that. However, if you're trying to enforce the order and saying, hey, I didn't get my child tonight, the police are going to say, this is a civil matter, ma'am, or this is a civil matter, sir. So, but it's always good. And I always respect the police on this episode, because I do understand their time is valuable, because we'd rather be having solving crimes and murders and, trying to take those things and doing their job, making sure we're safe. But we also want, if you can get documentation, a police report, or something that shows that you did try to call the police to try to do the right thing, to try to get the child back that night, that's documentation that you can actually show in front of the court. But a lot of times the police officers are not going to do anything about that. However, we do use police officers. For instance, if we have to get the child picked up, we can actually have a pickup order if mom is not delivering the child or is being very hesitant about giving the child, or dad. We can actually do a motion to enforce the judgment of divorce, or a motion to enforce the custody order, and we can ask for the judge to place a pickup order. And I've actually had to do that out of state, which is very difficult sometimes, because you have to go and get that order processed over in the other state too as well. So I had Ohio police help me with trying to get a child back to Michigan. So,
and in these scenarios, let's talk about the enforcement actions, because you just mentioned them. How fast can you file them, and what do they involve?
So as soon as you can get the documentation, but as myself as an attorney, I want to make sure that I have all the ducks in a row, because you're signing your name to that document. Also, your client is signing that name. So you want to make sure that they review that pleading, the motion to enforce. So it does take some time. My motions are usually between, my mom says I write a novel for the court, but I like to make sure that they're detailed. They have all the allegations in there. They have the law in there, because you're supposed to follow the court rules. And so it takes, I would say probably a couple days, to get that filed, to make sure that everything's in line, get the order in. But we also have to make sure the court has docket time, and it depends on their docket. So sometimes it depends on what court you're in. Sometimes, like in Wayne County, it's difficult sometimes to get a court hearing. In Livingston, they usually will hear things pretty quickly. Clinton, pretty quickly. Tri-County in my area, Eaton County. So it all depends, though, what the court has. And then there's one court that we go to quite often, which is Clinton. There's one judge that has to go to Gratiot and Clinton County. So actually 2 judges that do that. So they have to split their time between those 2 different counties. So it's difficult sometimes to get a date there. So it really depends on what the court's docket is.
Kristina, as we wrap on this episode, what's your advice to people listening to this right now? Maybe they feel a little bit exhausted. They feel like nothing's being done. What would be a piece of advice you would give to them?
I would tell them this, is that justice runs not swift and fast. It's not like an episode of Law and Order. It's not over in 1 hour. It's like a marathon sometimes. And sometimes, we can wave that magic wand and get an ex parte motion in quickly, but it all depends on you making sure that you present yourself well, that you don't look like you're convicting the other parent, that you make sure that you have your proper documentation, and make sure that you're following the order. Because sometimes, 2 wrongs don't make a right. Not sometimes, but 2 wrongs don't make a right. So you make sure that you're following the order, and make sure that you're doing what's right. And it makes the court look like you are the best parent ever. And so they're going to want to give you that enforcement order and want to give you the contempt and the sanction against the other side.
Yeah. Kristina, thank you for the time and insights today. I truly appreciate it.
Well, thank you.
And that's it for today's episode of Legal Beagle. Court orders aren't suggestions. They're enforceable. And if the other parent isn't holding up their end of the deal, Kristina Lyke and her team can help you take action. Do me a favor, visit likelaw.com to reach out to Kristina and the team. And don't forget to subscribe, leave a review and comment, or share this episode with someone who needs to hear it. As always, I'm Mike Leon. We'll see everybody next time.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.